everybody. Welcome to another exciting edition of Kicks Over Coffee. I'm your co-host, at least in this episode. I'm Matt Priest. I'm here with Chris John, who's founder of Syndicate. Chris was on with us last year. Chris, before we get started, tell me what you're drinking. What's your flavor of choice there?
Straight tequila, because it's noon here. Everything's good.
Kicks Over Tequila has a different kind of ring to it. So that's funny. All right, so you're taking a sip of your tequila. Mine just brewed. It's a little warm, so I'm going to get back to it. Let's talk about a year ago. You were with us talking about kind of how things were happening, what you're doing at Syndicate. A lot has happened over the last year. We've had inflation. We've had, I'm just looking at like the tick list, labor shortages, supply chain disruptions. Where was Syndicate when all this was happening? How did you kind of help your clients navigate it all?
Well, I think it's a couple of things, Matt. If you kind of look at macro type events like this, there's not much we can do about that.
Right.
What we can do is just bring efficiencies to our customers and help them do what they need to do, which is sell in a down market. So, the digital channel is becoming bigger and more effective for them. And we're the guys that help them get that data over.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now let's wind the clocks back. I'm always curious how companies come up with their names. Like, was there a boardroom where you're sitting around a table and you have like 5 different options? I think about this when they're renaming sports teams. They just renamed the Washington Commanders the Commanders. It apparently took 3 years and millions of dollars to figure it out. Well, how did you come up with Syndicate? Like, what's the genesis of that?
Well, to be honest with you, we were looking at a problem, which was the delivery of information. Most of us are technologists. We come out of trading floor type of backgrounds. And, syndication was the term that we used. So we figured, let's give it a go. And let's be honest, there was a little tequila involved that day too. So all good. And, the site was open and it looked like a good way to kind of get it going. I think a lot of people were focusing on data control consolidation, which is absolutely something they should be doing. We were kind of coming at it from the angle of delivery, getting information across partners. That was kind of our focus as coming out. We thought Syndicate was a good name for us.
Yeah, I love that name. It's great. And if tequila's involved, I guess it's even better these days, right? Let's talk about something that is newer than tequila, and that's ChatGPT and this kind of whole AI revolution. There's so much hype. We've covered a number of kind of aspects of AI and its impact on footwear specific, but talk to me about kind of how you're viewing ChatGPT, this revolution. It's either freaking people out. The first one headline said they're going to take over the world. They're robots, and they tweeted at people to go kill themselves, all the way to it's going to cure cancer and everything in between. So kind of how should I feel about ChatGPT and the AI revolution?
The technology is solid. It's good tech. I mean, we're technologists by trade. So we've been evaluating it really since early December for potential use for our clients. And we put it through some testing, some batteries on our end, and it's quite remarkable what it can do. So we kind of looked at it in light of what we do as a business in syndicating data. And a lot of the challenges that our customers face, we try to see if we could apply the tech to those challenges. That's kind of one of our drivers. We don't just go build stuff and hope it works. We kind of listen. And it kind of, the feedback we were getting was, look, can this thing help us with our romantic descriptions of our product? Can this thing help us with our marketing descriptions, bullets? Can this thing do language translations? Can this thing help us optimize our messaging so that we're speaking in a form that is targeted towards the actual client that we have targeted to buy the product?
Right.
And we started thinking it, we're technology guys. We're not afraid of the technology. And I don't think anybody should be. There's always limits to it. But I think if you look at it as a tool, which we do, and seeing how we can apply that tool to really kind of help the businesses that we support, we thought there was a great opportunity to try this out. We partnered with several of our clients to come up with what we call an AI assistant. And what that assistant does is ask you to answer a series of questions. Who's your target audience? What's your persona? How do you want it to be presented? Do you want Ronald Reagan presenting it? Do you want
Shakespeare,
Charles presenting? Exactly. whoever your persona is, and then let the thing go to town. And then, because we know what the destinations are calling for in the form of descriptions and limits and everything, we kind of pre-built it to see how it would fill. And the responses were pretty remarkable. And it was pretty impressive what it came back with. And I'm not saying that for me as a technology, because I'm not a merchant and I don't do what they do, but they were saying it, which is more important to us. So I think what we saw was that the technology can be used to generate certain types of information. I'm sure it could be used for a lot more in the space, but for our limited use and approach, it worked really well. The other thing that it did was allow, like we have customers that sell cross-border. They wanted to be able to describe their products in different language, in this case, Spanish.
Right.
And the translations were just beautiful. Obviously, you want to have somebody check it, but the translation capability of that technology is fantastic. The other kind of approach is, because most of our clients, what used to be, they might have been selling through 10 or 15 digital outlets. They're upwards of 30. We have clients approaching 60 digital outlets for sales now. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
So when you start to think about that, they all want something a little bit different. So I think that's another potential use for ChatGPT, which is to optimize it per channel. So allow it to speak to who their customers are in a mode they want the product represented in. So some very cool capability to really target your messaging.
That is really cool. And I think that's what happens with technology, Chris, is that you have these moments when it's unveiled and our imaginations run wild. I remember 10 years ago, we were all going to be 3D printing shoes in our home and it was going to be fantastic. And of course, none of that's happening right now. But 3D printing has become an important aspect of kind of behind the scenes sample making for footwear production, which is not sexy, but it's super impactful and it reduced costs and time and all those types of things. This feels very similar. Like ChatGPT is not going to be Terminator 3 or whatever, but it's going to be it's not also going to kind of change the world in every aspect of our lives, but it's going to enhance and mobilize us in different ways. Now, the juxtaposition of that, something I constantly go back to, and maybe you have a perspective on this, is these new technologies, they're often sold as, hey, it's going to make our lives easier and you'll be able to go out to the Syndicate golf club and have more time to do your thing or host whatever. But email was promised that, texting was promised that, Zoom all promised these things. And it almost seems like it's the expectation of efficiency and output has been increased and so you're still going to have to work. You're not going to gain any personal time back and you're going to have a lot more output and that expectation will be there. Do you see that as a part of this? So how do you kind of, kind of measure that with your member or with your clients?
Yeah, I think the way we think about that, Matt, is the technology can run amok and just create all kinds of secondary problems you never could have anticipated. I think if you're using it in a controlled manner, I think of it as a tool. If nobody invented the car, we'd all still be riding horses. It's still a transportation device in the end. Of course, it's more than that, but in the end, it's to get you from A to B. I kind of look at the technology the same way. If it serves a purpose, if it is making the job easier for you and is not causing, quite frankly, 100 little fires around you never anticipated having to put out, I think that's a good approach and application of the technology. And I think you really have to work with the people that do this every day to make sure that there's an efficiency there. And I think that's the little subtleties. Everybody makes the tech splash. I get it. The tech is good. It can do anything. But in the end, you got to really find practical uses for it. So that's kind of how we focus it, maybe a little bit lower level than the big bang. But the tech is good. It's what we found is that it does work well and it's very responsive. And if you can frame it and put it into a bracket that is helpful to a customer, our customer obviously being a footwear, it's a good fit.
Yeah. So to borrow from Shakespeare, to syndicate or not to syndicate, that's the question, right? So talk to us about why the Syndicate platform is so critical for companies, particularly delivering product via e-commerce channels.
Sure. I think there's a couple, all the things you mentioned earlier in the start of the conversation. There's inflation. If we look at it across our customer base, the number of products, the sheer number of styles, everybody's nervous, and what a shock. People are cutting it back a bit. So I think people's nature right now is there's a little bit of trepidation out there. Where's inflation going? We're entering a recession. Is this thing going to happen hard? Get a soft landing? No one knows. There's been, kind of with our experience, there's kind of three drivers. There's, I need to sell more. Okay, what's the best and most efficient way to do that? We think a digital strategy, a well thought out digital strategy, can really help accelerate that. A lot of these companies that we work with, are still relatively small, and they're emerging. So, getting on that highway, we give them the ability to get on that highway and hit the gas and have a bunch of exits they can get off on. So I think there's some tremendous value add there. You can expand your network pretty quickly. The other is, kind of looking at it, and part of our services around verification is once that your product is gone and you think it's being sold up there, you need to check it. Inventory levels dip and they're up and down, but inventory optimization on inventory levels, I think there was probably over inventory in Q4. We saw a real slowdown, but things are starting to pick up again in orders. Mm-hmm. So I think conceptually, what's top of mind of a C-level exec is I got to get my inventory levels right. And I got to make sure my demand planning is right, because I don't want to be sitting on a bunch of it. And I think that the balance sheet responsibility of who owns the product is shifting a bit. We've seen a lot more drop ship. Yeah. Seeing perhaps the wholesale purchases that you would have seen even 3 to 5 years ago. So I think there's a little bit of trepidation and balance sheet management going on there. And I would expect it through the rest of 23. You just got to be really good. You got to be really, really fast, and you got to know where your numbers are.
Yeah.
The other is sustainability, Matt. That's a big driver for our clients. And, nearshoring is another area. We're seeing a lot of our customers start to really think through very well thought out strategies on how to make those transitions. And, we do a lot in the supply chain space as part of our solution. And, we partnered with a big company called All Ports Cargo Services. They're a global supply chain services company. Yeah. And the challenges that these companies face in, nearshoring their products and making that transition, if that's what they intend to do, it's not trivial. That's a big turn, if you know what I mean. So I think we can add some value there as well.
No, I agree with that. I mean, the supply chains become ever more complex, to be honest with you. And so you mentioned the verification term. I want you to kind of unpack that a little bit more from a Syndicate perspective. What is verification? What does that mean? If I'm ABC Johnny Footwear Company and I come to you and say, Chris, help me out. What does that entail?
Sure. Let's say you have, I'm going to use a round number of 100 styles that you want to go and check your network and make sure your product is up there. We would go up and check. We would check that the product is available. It's available with the right descriptive. It's not violating MAP. And we would basically make sure that product is being sold on that digital shelf as you expect it to be.
Right.
What you find is that can change. A glitch in your inventory platform, and for whatever reason, you get delisted automatically off some of these shelves because they don't think you have product. It happens a lot more than you think, and we think that there's a great opportunity here to make sure that the products you think you're selling through that channel, are actually being sold to that channel. There's a lot of deselection. There's a lot of drops for no reasons on the brand side. There could be just a digital problem or data problem on the electronic digital trader where the data didn't get over and you can't sell it because the product's not listed. I think it's about a 1 to 2% loss in sale just because the digital shelf is so hard to monitor. Back in the old days, Matt, used to send people in to go look at the shelves. Right. My product's up, are they up front? This to me is the same thing. You're just doing it with a lot more velocity across a lot of networks digitally. So the other thing, which is also very good in the verification component, is before you go and meet with a buyer, knowing what products they're actually selling. So you go and you actually do that analysis the day before and say, hey, look, I've got 100 products, but you're only selling 92 of them. What do I got? What do we need to do here to get you selling the whole line? So great opportunity to kind of see it almost in near real time and have that good conversation about making sure your products are listed.
I think that's so critical, Chris, because anecdotally, I had a friend of mine who runs a brand, and he was talking about how a major retailer they had a strong program with that retailer, and they were going to possibly be delayed 1 day of delivery, 1 day. And it could have even been not a delay. He was just kind of monitoring the how long his product was taking to get there. And he was really pushing the supply chain to get it there. And there was an algorithm on the retailer side that instantly canceled the order the moment that digit went, I'm just making a date up from May 5th to May 6th.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then millions of dollars of sales lost. Yeah. And it's nerve-wracking if you don't have line of sight into that.
Yeah, and that's actually a reality. I mean, we see that all over the place. There are algorithms always working. They're looking at the inventory level. They're checking the availability date on when it was promised versus when it actually got there. And oftentimes you just get delisted and you don't even know it.
Right.
your number of products, you've crossed the limit on their end, and hey, they're not selling it. And if there's enough volume of that, they may just delist the whole product category or the brand. We've seen it happen.
Cutthroat, man. It's cutthroat out there.
Yeah, it's hard. No, honestly, there's no face to a digital sale. You got to be on. And that's probably where we're probably bringing the most value on the verification side. It's the comfort in knowing that somebody's actually checking that digital shelf for you.
That's huge value. It's insurance policy for you. It's kind of the neighborhood watch, if you will, right? So you can sleep at night. Let me close out our conversation with this question. You kind of mentioned some of the things you expect in 23, but let's say we're having this conversation on April, whatever, 2024. What do you think is going to be kind of the headwinds that the industry is facing? What are going to be some of the critical issues your members or your clients are dealing with at that moment?
Sure. I think the inventory levels and making sure that demand planning is optimized as best they can. I think it's just going to be something they're going to be very focused on. And I think they need to, especially if more of their volume is going through the digital channel. It's very hard to plan. It's much harder to plan. I think the other thing too is the nearshoring. I think that's just a harsh reality of what's going on in the world today. And I think that is going to be top of mind. And I think people are really thinking about strategies to make that happen. The world's a changing place, as you know, Matt. Mm-hmm. I think people are thinking ahead in those kind of terms. And I guess the other thing is, sustainability. I mean, this is definitely top of mind. Making sure that your products meet a certain standard, making sure that the transportation partners that you're using meet that standard, finding ways to optimize your packaging. This is just all stuff that I think is on the top of mind in the C-level suites. And I don't think it's going to go away. I don't think it's going to change Thursday. I mean, of course, if there's some geo-macro event, things change. But right now, that's what I think is happening.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Chris. I think you nailed it. No Shakespeare, but Nostradamus and sure. So as we close out, what's the best way for folks to kind of get in touch with Syndicate? What's the website? What should people be doing to engage with you?
Sure, it's syndicate.io is the website, obviously www. We're here always. If you give us a ping, our numbers are up on the website, and we will call you right back. Most of our communication correspondence comes in, is referrals from our existing customers. So very excited about that. Hope that continues. Know it will, and we're going to keep making sure it does. Yeah. And I think that's probably the best way to get hold of us. And then we'll have a sales exec call you right back. And usually when we get a chance to show what we can do, it turns into a sale pretty quickly for us.
That's awesome. And Chris, you have a guarantee, you told me this in the green room, that no algorithm or chat GTP client will reach out to you if you're a potential customer. It will be a human being that calls you. I know you're a tech guy, but you still use humans, right?
I'm old school service.
Good.
People in communication matter. Now, in our business, being able to explain something like this does take more than 30 seconds.
That's true. That's true. Well, Chris, I can't thank you enough for pouring a cup of tequila. I had straight black coffee, but I really enjoyed our conversation because you're kind of an insider outsider, right? You're a tech guy from outside the industry. You're now in the industry because we're a familial industry. And so to have your critical thought from your perspective is super helpful. So thank you for joining me today on Kicks Over Coffee.
Matt, it's great to see you again. Thanks for having us, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no problem. Everyone, thanks for joining. Kicksovercoffee.com is where you can see all of our conversations with a variety of different personalities and thought leaders in our industry and outside of our industry. If you want to come on kicksovercoffee.com, shoot us a note, info@fdra.org. We'd love to have you. And in the meantime, hope you have a great rest of your day.